Are you speaking to their problems? Are you speaking to their desires? Are you speaking to their questions that they may have about your offer? And are you talking about the actual offer?
Welcome back to the Sustainable Creator Podcast. Today, we are sitting down with Samantha Hoilett, who is a sales messaging strategist, copywriter, and urgency expert. We've had a lot of great conversations on the podcast lately around sales, and today is going to be another one of those. We're going to talk a lot about what does urgency look like in your sales messaging without using high pressure tactics while still sounding like you and meeting the human on the other side of the screen. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Samantha is incredible just from the little we've talked to her so far. I know that you guys are in for a treat firsthand. So welcome to the podcast, Samantha. We're so glad that you're here.
Thanks, Joe and Lyndon. So excited to be here and chat all about sales. Can't wait.
So we're going to kick off with just your credibility. Can you brag about yourself a little bit, whether it's a coolest stat, an outcome that you've had for a client, or like a favorite project that you've worked on recently?
Oh my gosh. I guess the best place to start, given our conversation today, is that I built my business to 6 figures by selling mostly, almost entirely, always on offers. So offers that are taking bookings anytime. And the way I was able to do that was with urgency and knowing how to create it any day, anytime. And I just feel like that's so cool because it made my business launch optional. It made me feel like I could bring in a client when I wanted to. And it's just changed everything for me to know how to talk about my offers in a way that felt good to me and still brought people in.
I love that phrase, launch optional. I heard someone the other week say work optional, someone else that we're going to have on the podcast later on. And I just love attaching that word optional, apparently, is just one of my new favorite things for phrases. But this segues so nicely into, let's start with some definitions, because we've covered a couple of different words that are very commonly used in sales messaging. So starting with urgency, can you give your definition? What are the common types of urgency and how do you define it?
Yeah. So for me, I look at urgency as kind of a two-prong. So there's internal urgency and external urgency. And I think most people are familiar with external urgency. We see that all the time, no matter what you're doing, where you're shopping, right? There's a deadline, a discount, 2 spots left, price going up, yada, yada. But it's external because you are speaking to things that are external to the client, right? These are things that the business is putting onto the client. So for me, internal urgency is where people really feel connected to what you're saying. They feel moved by your message and they want to buy. And that's really diving into the problems that they have, their desires, questions or fears they have around getting started, their identity that they want to step into and where they want to be in 6 months. That's the kind of internal urgency that can really, you can tap into anytime.
Oh, I really love the where do they want to be in 6 months? Like that really drives that internal point home. Like you're now speaking to their future identity, not just the current one.
Yeah.
If I think about comparing and contrasting external versus internal urgency, do you see that there's a difference in like the lifetime value of a client? Like, are they less likely to book again if you use an external urgency, or are they going to be like a worse client that is less happy if you use a certain type of urgency or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's such a great, nuanced, but important thing to call out because 100%. I think that it's not bad to use external urgency. It's just that if that's the only reason somebody buys, they probably aren't deeply motivated by that internal urgency, like we talked about solving the problem, achieving the result. And so when it comes time to either re-sign or refer you or upsell to your next thing, they probably don't have that deep motivation that somebody who is motivated by that internal urgency did. So again, it's not that it's like good or bad. It's just something to be very mindful of as you sell.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about the context of ethical urgency, or why we're here today, how do you define what ethical urgency is?
Yeah. So for me, urgency and like ethical urgency is all about transparency. Like I think to me, it matters so much that we, sell with respect, we sell with transparency, like, and just putting the person first. And I think that so long as the way that you're selling, even if you do use a deadline discount or bonus, so long as it's communicated in a way that is true to like the situation or what's actually happening. For
Mhm.
me, and I think a lot of people take issue when you land on a page with a deadline timer and you just click refresh and it starts over, or someone saying doors closing last time this year and you see them reopen it 3 months later. It's that kind of thing that breaks your reputation and you lose trust when you do those things. But I also want people to know that, you know, urgency doesn't have to look like that, and you can use it in a way that actually is building that relationship with your potential client, not taking it away.
When you think about ethical urgency and it being launch optional, how do you start thinking about how do I make it urgent for people to buy without using any of those other ways to push people in of like restarting like doors closing or things like that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work you can do. This is something that I teach inside my program, and it's just like there's a lot. But the best place that I would start is looking at like number one is, does my offer feel available? Right? I think that sometimes we let things kind of just sit on our website or we have something pinned in our bio, but it's like, do people know that that's the offer you're trying to book in spots for? So you have
Mhm.
to be kind of like loud and consistent about it of like, this is what I'm taking spots for. And even just speaking about, hey, like, here's what I helped a client with this week. Like, that's something we could do together if you enrolled this week. Right. So just kind of keeping that always on energy, even if you're not in a launch where you've got something special going.
I'm curious because you said the phrase always on. And from a content perspective, what about the days when you really just don't want to show up and share your face or be on, right? Are there ways to be able to set yourself up for success so that you have content ready to share examples like that? And what are some of your favorite ways to do that?
Yeah. One of my like favorite ways is using your sales page. If you have a sales page that has all the details of your offer, who it's for, what it does, why somebody needs it, pull from there. You've already done that hard messaging work of like talking about what your offer is, why they need it. You can pull even just a single bullet point from there and just expand on it real quick, tell a client story, sharing like a client win, and yeah, just inviting them to like DM you or, you know, yeah, inquire. That's the fastest way.
So you talked a little bit about like what should be on that sales page and like the different parts. Can we get deeper into that? Like, what are the things inside of like an urgency framework that you think is really important to include?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to a sales page specifically, I think it's really important to have a unique point of view so that people know like what makes this offer different, why should I care? And then also a specific result that the offer promises. And that doesn't have to be like I promise 10K in 30 days or lose 10 pounds in 30 days, but it has to be a tangible outcome that they know why they would buy that offer and what future is waiting for them on the other side. And then from there, it's really about making sure that they feel seen so that they know they're in the right place and they have all of the key information that they need to feel ready to buy. So that's going to be offer details, um, answering an FAQ, and also having client testimonials on your website if you have them so that people can see it worked for them, it can work for me.
You made the comment that it needs to be different. If I think
Yeah.
about like our audience, creative service providers, like there's categories of like web designers. To some extent, they all kind of sell websites. They're all kind of similar, and there's only so many different ways you can position that. Or like if you're taking photos, like there's only so many. So how do you make yourself different when what you're delivering tends to be somewhat similar?
Yeah, I totally get that because I myself am a copywriter and I used to feel the same way where I was like, I create words, they create words. Like the end is the same, but it's really not, right? And I think when you take time to really look at your process of like, what I always like to ask my clients is where do you spend more love, energy, and attention than potentially other experts in your space? Where do you really take your time with your clients? And that can be the thing. For me, I was a copywriter. But then I realized that what I really love to spend time with my clients to really ensure that they can see the result they came for is messaging. So that's when I really pulled out, like, if you want your messaging to be rock solid and have the copy to match, you come to me. And you could even say that's still not different. It is different enough once you combine yourself and your story and all of that into that, that's going to make it different. But I think figuring out like what really lights you up about your work, where do you spend more time, that's going to help you stand out.
Yeah, I would also just say from personal experience, it took us a lot of trial and error on the coaching side. Like it took a number of clients to figure out what are the small things that make us unique as coaches. And we have a lot of clients that will come to us and say, I had a bad experience, with a coach before. What makes you different? And it makes me really sad that that is the case, but it is. And being able to identify what it is that is unique to us and giving ourselves the grace over, a couple of years to be able to nail down on those things was really helpful. And so just a word of encouragement to anyone listening who, if you're still finding what those things are for you, you will find it, but give yourself some grace because sometimes it does take some trial and error, and just having the willingness to look at things with an open mind and continue to experiment and ask those questions and lean into what Samantha is talking about of like, what are those areas that light you up? I think that is such a powerful question.
We're effectively kind of walking through one of your frameworks. So before we hopped on, like you told us you had this framework that you really like of an instant appeal framework. And we just talked about the first part, which is being different. What's the second part?
Yeah, the instant appeal framework is kind of my go-to for filtering yourself and your marketing of like, is this going to stand out as something that somebody could want to buy now, not someday? And so, yes, number one is different. The second part is being desirable, and the third is doable. So the second part for desirable is like we were talking about with creating content, really anchoring into like, does this solve a problem I want to solve? Does this help me achieve a desire or identity I want to achieve? Does it help me do it in a way that feels good to me? Um, and like, does it feel like this is something I want to spend time doing, really? And like, I think that the way that people get in their own way with desirable is either like speaking too much on just the features, like what it is, how it works, and maybe even talking a lot about um oh, it's hard but it's worth it, that kind of messaging of like it's going to take time, and if you put in the work, like you may see a result. And it's not that that's not true, but we have to be mindful of the balance of like, oh, I have 150 modules in my course, which sounds daunting, versus like focusing on here's what this course will help you do, here's what's possible when you do this course, here's what you're missing out on when you don't do this course, or you will take you longer or it'll be harder because you didn't have the tools or the support in here. So I think just focusing on like making it sound like something they want to take time to do.
It's interesting. Oftentimes, like when we're working with clients on building offers, we'll talk about the idea of like positioning it either as inputs or outputs. And I like to use the analogy, like if you're going into a bakery, no bakery has on their board eggs, milk, oil, flour. Like, no, they put a croissant on the board because people want like the thing that they're getting, not all of the individual components that go into that. And like, sure, when you're going through an offer as a client, you're going to experience that, but you buy for the output of what you're going to get. Like the croissant is the goal because that's what you're going to enjoy and you're trying to get, not all of the process to get there. And that desirable part is really interesting.
The last part is doable, which for me is all about, does this feel like better, faster, easier, simpler than what I'm doing right now? Like, does it feel like I could start today? And just like even that question, does it feel like I could start today? Like, does it feel like this is an application that's been updated and wants my inquiry? Does it feel like this offer is taking bookings? Does it feel like this is something that I could decide to start this week and make progress next week? Right? Like your offer has to give those vibes. Otherwise people will continue to put it off because it sounds like something that they need to take time. I got to take time to prepare. I got to feel ready. And the example I always give is like, there was like a period last year where I was looking for a bookkeeper, and I was like, I know that I want one. I know that I'm ready for one. Like, but it doesn't feel doable right now. It feels like I need to get my numbers together. Don't I need to have all my like stuff sorted out? And I always say, if I just had one bookkeeper say, bring your messy receipts, bring your like crappy Excel sheet that you've been doing by hand, I will take care of it. If I had just one person say that, they would have had my money like faster. So just thinking about like, how can you smooth the way so that people can feel confident and ready to jump in? Because I think so often it's just that feeling of like, am I ready? Do I have what it takes to make the most of this? And
Mm-hmm.
answering that final barrier.
Are there certain questions that you recommend asking or ways that you love navigating how to find what those examples could be for somebody's clientele?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to look at if you have an intake form or an inquiry, a great question to ask is like, what made you decide to reach out now? And then you can kind of get a sense of like, what are they going through right now that made them want to like sign up? So to use the bookkeeper example, it might be like, oh, I'm reaching out now because I want to be ready for tax season. And it's like, okay, so then your content going forward could be like, are you getting ready for tax season? Like, here's how I could help you, or here's what you need to have ready. Nothing. I can do it all, right? But that's like the idea. So yeah, that would be an example.
That's a really good question. It's one of our favorites too.
So if you think about like building out how you're talking about an offer with different desirable and doable and putting out content, like you just talked about marketing for tax season, one of the things that we've seen fairly commonly is people will do a lot of educating of here's how you do a thing, here's knowledge on this thing, I'm an expert on this thing, and they end up doing a ton of nurturing. They make a lot of good friends online. But urgency is about selling things. So part one of this conversation is how do you define the difference between urgency and selling?
So, okay. I think that urgency is like a subset of selling. So selling to me means that you are inviting people to make a buying decision. And that's all it is an invitation. You are inviting the right person to the right offer. And urgency is really answering why now? Like, why should I do this now? Should this be a priority? Um, and like giving them a real reason that isn't, like we talked about, just the external urgency reasons.
And the second part is how do you differentiate that to then just nurturing your audience or the middle part of the sales funnel for a lot of people?
Yeah. So the thing with nurturing is that it is so important, right? We need to build this audience. We need to get them fired up and curious about the work that we do. But if they never take that next step, it's kind of like, okay, where are the clients? Like, I love that everyone loves my content and loves my emails, but where are the clients? And so the difference between nurturing and selling is helping somebody make a buying decision. That's when you know that you're selling. And so nurturing is like you know, giving them information, tips, tricks, how-tos, and that gives them something to go do. But if that thing isn't go do your offer, then you weren't selling. And I think like there's a way to do it. Like what I teach my clients is how to nurture and sell in the same breath, because you can absolutely give value, educate, inspire, and work it back so that they see your offer as the next step. And I think the main thing is not feeling like you can't educate somebody into feeling excited. Like
Mm,
there's a comparison I use of like, you could hand somebody a textbook on like, here's how to run a marathon, but that's
yeah,
not going to make them fired up to do a marathon. But if you speak to, here's what happens when you become a runner. Here's what
yeah,
happens when you like feel like you can just run for miles. Like, here's how good running gets to feel.
yeah.
Then they're going to want the book on how to run a marathon, right? So you have to like build that desire for the outcome. And that's really what selling is.
Yeah. I literally watched a YouTube video over the weekend about how to get out of a running rut. And it was so helpful because I've been in a running rut. We've also been traveling for the past couple of weeks. So, like, life. But it was really helpful on speaking to that feeling for me. And now I'm really excited to go on a run this week again, you know? So, thank you for that example. And I'm curious, you said help people make a buying decision. Do those examples count towards that? Or are there other examples on how we can help clients buy better?
Yeah. I think it goes back to that definition of internal urgency of like, are you speaking to their problems? Are you speaking to their desires? Are you speaking to their questions that they may have about your offer? And are you talking about the actual offer? Because I think that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people think selling is, okay, I made like a PS, you can check it out here. Or like, if that sounds good or you liked what you read, like check out my offer. But that's not selling. Selling is like you have to be speaking to their desired outcome on some level. And once you're doing that, then your offer becomes something that they want to buy because you have to like you have to get them sold on like the message of this is what you want to do, this is like aligned with what your perfect next steps are, and then the offer becomes like a natural progression.
That's so good.
If I double click on this nurture trap that a lot of people fall into,
Yeah.
what would you say the most common like 2 or 3 quick fixes you can just make in like 30 minutes or less that can slowly push you towards that selling side instead of just nurturing?
Yeah, so I would say to keep creating your nurture content. I would just take like almost the bottom third of whatever you're writing, whether it's your caption, your email, and talk about your offer. Like literally introduce your offer. Like I think like offer awareness is such a battle that I think, you know, it's one of those things where just offer awareness will help you bring more sales. Do people know what your offer is? Do they know what you're selling? So instead of giving 3 tips, talk about how the 3 tips inside your offer helped your client do something that week, right? Like instead of, I find myself doing this all the time. Like I'll write out like 3 tips and then I'll just delete it and then be like, anyway, back to what I really want to talk about, which is how I can help you and how we can take the next step. So I think just like instead of it being like, here's how to be a better public speaker, step 1, 2, 3, it would be like, here's how to be a like better public speaker. Um, if right now you get the stage sweats and you really wish that you didn't, the best thing you can do is know your audience. And when you know your audience, your speeches will go so much smoother, blah, blah, blah. So you're selling that desire and selling that desired outcome. If you want to know more how to do this, like check out my speaking coaching program here. And so you've given them value by showing them, oh, I just need to know my audience better. Everyone says I need to rehearse and this and that. So you're giving them a new perspective. You're still giving them value, but you are pointing them to, if you want to make that shift, like join my offer.
I think one of my favorite frameworks to like say this concisely that I've heard is give the what, sell the how. So like
Mm.
you give the desire and like you talk to what's possible, and then it's I give you the step by step here, or I'll help you do it, or I'll do it for you, or all of those are like inside of the like how container. One of the interesting things is urgency in my mind falls into this category of call to actions of you're wanting them to do something because of some urgent container. And if you were to think about that, like you've cut that bottom third, you've switched it to a desire that is specific to a public speaker getting sweats, I think. And what is the most common or like the possible call to actions that are still ethical inside of that urgency lever?
Yeah. So I would look at tying it back to the problem that they want to solve and the desire. That's kind of my go-to urgency CTA framework is if you're ready to stop X problem and you're ready to start Y desire, like click here, learn more, book a call, apply, buy. And I like that because it's kind of like, if this matters to you, if this is the trajectory that you're on, then this offer is worth clicking on. And I get clicks when I talk about bragging. I get clicks on almost every email I write, and I only link to my sales pages in my emails. And having a CTA that feels like I'm talking directly to you and what matters to you is so much more powerful than me being like, oh, like I have 2 spots left. It's like, okay, good for you. Like, as opposed to, yeah, public speaking has really been on my to-do list this year. I'm going to click here to learn.
I think about that a lot when I'm reading books because authors do such a good job of this where they're talking to the reader. And even when they start to share their own personal stories, they very quickly tie it back to the person reading. And so you feel like you're having this very personal experience, learning things that are applicable to you and how you can grow as human, business owner, whatever the case. Um, so that's just such a good reminder, I think, and just sales especially, like bring it back to the person who's reading it, like make it apply to them. It's not all about you, it's about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
What
I'm curious about timeframes. So when we're talking about urgency, a lot of people you've mentioned having countdown timers and deadlines. And I mean, I love a good countdown timer. Um, but I'm curious, what is your perspective on using timeframes to create ethical urgency?
Yeah. So again, like I think when you're using, and I love a good countdown timer too. I'm a launch copywriter. I will slap those on left and right. I don't mind. For me, it's again like more about communicating very clearly and correctly. Like, is that the last launch of the year? Okay, let's make sure we say that. And also, it's truly the last launch of the year.
Right.
But I think that when it comes to, okay, well, what if my offer is always available? I get that. That was me too. As a copywriter, my packages were always available. And what I found is try to find like really know your audience and find like what is top of mind for them. What is coming up for them? Like life is real. Life has time attached to it, right? So like it could be anything of if you're a bookkeeper, is it tax season? Is it planning budget for the holidays? Like maybe if you are speaking to public speakers, maybe it's like, oh, like conference season is upon us. If you're a career coach, is performance review season coming? Like, there's always like something happening. And you just got to know like, what are those kind of markers? And then of course, your business can also create them. So for example, if you run like a program that's always like taking clients, or you can always say like, next week or next month, we're starting a live 30-day challenge. You could join us if so you can find, I call them start lines. What are those start lines instead of deadlines of like, what is something that is starting or could be happening soon that you can kind of tap into that urgency for?
Ooh, I love that. And there's so much psychological power to that too, because we love the start of a new month, the start of a new year.
Exactly.
Like, I'm always like, oh, it's a new day,
And every day's a new day. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's such a great perspective on that. I love that. I've never heard anyone else say that.
So if you think about the framework that you've walked us through, different, desirable, doable. We talked a little bit about sales pages, but I'm curious about like the other places that this framework shows up in your copy and how you're messaging. And so I'm just going to start in our most common platform, Instagram. How do you think about using this urgency framework to make it actually attract people and make them go to that decision phase specifically?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, different is more like, what is your offer? Like, why should I care? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what is the offer and who is it for? And how are you going to grab my attention with it? Right? Like, how is this something I should pay attention to? So that's going to be when you're talking about your offer, you're introducing it, maybe for your pinned post on your profile of like, I want to make sure people know that this offer is here and it's not like anything they've seen or tried before. Then I would say for desirable and doable, I would be sharing that a lot, like in the form of like client wins and just even talking about how you help your clients. So, it doesn't have to always be like, even if you don't have that client proof just yet, you can always create great type of content of here's what I would tell you to do if you wanted to get booked out in 30 days, or here's what I would tell you to do if you were getting ready for your first photo shoot, right? So you can lean on that. And when you talk about desirable, like, especially if you're a service provider, talking about the experience of working with you. So not just, oh, you get 50 photos or you get a sales page, but like, how are they going to be guided through the experience?
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I love because you don't need to even think about, oh, I got to come up with a content idea. You can just literally create like if you were to book in with me today, here's what would happen. Or like, if you were to book in with me, like, here's how I would support you, or here's how you would be guided. And
Mhm.
just like put them in that feeling. I think of like spa day messaging, like, oh, if you, all you have to do is show up and we will take care of the rest. You're going to feel so good. And just like, what is that for your offer? And talk about
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
So there's that. And then when it comes to doable, definitely like Instagram stories, great spot to speak to some of your warmest leads. And again, kind of hit on that message of like, you could start today. By the end of next week, here's what's possible. Yes, like even if XYZ, even if you think you don't have a big audience, even if you think you're busy, even if you think like, what is that thing that they think? Talk about that. And I think people always look at um, time and money as like the hesitations, but I want you to get specific to your unique audience. Um, so, for example, let's say you're a brand photographer, it's not just time and money. Maybe it's like they think they need to lose weight before they do their photo shoot, or
Mhm.
they think they need to have the perfect outfits, or they think that there's nowhere photogenic in their city. I don't know, like whatever it is. And like go like day by day, there's 10 ideas right there for you of like, how can I help someone over that edge who's already watching me on stories? But they just kind of need that little nudge.
Mm. Yeah. I am imagining just keeping like a running file of things that you hear from
Yes.
people because oftentimes people will tell you. It's just a matter of are you paying attention, right? And those are such spot on examples for that world for sure.
I think it's interesting. Like a couple episodes back, we interviewed Alyssa about Instagram lead sales, and one of the comments that she made is my DMs are my content calendar, because basically she takes of like what's the most common questions that I'm getting, and that's just the loop back to this is the pieces of content I'm creating in the next couple of weeks, because it's how do you answer the questions and like what's the most common things people care about in the sales process. That's now talking about the urgency and pre-solving some of that doable question.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it is like when you are talking about these things front facing and you're not waiting, like it's great, Alyssa with her DMs, like it's great when someone brings that to you, but equally it's like if you are proactively just like putting that out there, there's for every one person that DM'd you, there's 10 people that probably didn't but had the same question. And so you want to
Right.
be proactively like bringing these things up. And I think overall like we're talking about ethical urgency, like and just at being an ethical marketer, like I think it creates such a sense of like safety to reach out to somebody who is not afraid to talk about like those type of questions. It makes you feel like someone who is open to being like, oh yeah, I thought of that, don't worry, I got you. Like we have a support for that, we have a feature for that or a system for that, like you're going to be taken care of. And I think it just shows a level of confidence in like your offer too.
That's such a good point. So you've mentioned we just talked about Instagram. You've mentioned sales pages a little bit. How do you like to use sales pages with messaging? Like, are there certain things that you specifically dial in on? What is that approach? Is it different than other platforms?
Yeah, so I think the thing with the sales page is that it should be a dedicated page for one offer in your business. And so that page should answer every question that somebody has to feel ready to buy. And so that's really where you can really get into all the details about your offer. And I encourage you to not shy away from it. Like it's almost like the receipt, right? Of like, here's what you're
Hmm.
going to get, CVS receipt. Here's what you're going to get, everything itemized, everything like laid out for you so that two things. Number one, someone can like land on that page and have all the information they need to be ready to buy just from landing on that one page. So that's really the question. A lot of people ask, how long should a sales page be? That's the answer. How long does it need to be to give them all the
Mm,
things they need to know? And then secondly, you want to be thinking about writing a sales page in a way that um, even someone who's brand new to you and the work that you do, they could start at the top and get to the bottom. And again, they know everything. Like even if they don't necessarily have that trust or that relationship with you, because they've got the like all the things we listed before, they've got that messaging on there of like who you are, what you do, how you help. Um, And the 4 questions, this is actually a different framework, but the 4
We
questions
love
people
it.
need to know to feel ready to buy is why you, why me, why this, and why now. And so
I like
when
this.
anything that you want to sell your offer,
Mhm.
that's kind of your like final checklist of like, did I speak to all 4 of those things?
Yeah, that's really good. I like that a lot.
That could be a whole
That's
episode.
It
I
could be.
most definitely can be. And like for me, I hear that in like that's just my like go-to questions for discovery calls.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it of like are we specifically answering every single one of these on a sales page before they get on a discovery call,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's such a good
which is great to
point.
think about. How is this different once you get into email, which is like a long form relationship with people?
Yes. Email is definitely such a great place to build like urgency and just have that consistent sales touch point because the messaging, we're talking about messaging, the messaging that you can put on social media is not the same messaging that you can put in an email. In an email, someone is only there because they know, like, and trust you. Like, there's something that had to have happened for them to get on your list in the first place. So for me, when you're thinking about creating urgency, like, social media is where people can like build that know, like, and trust, and email is where they can go to decide and buy. And so
Mm,
that's very much how I treat email of like we talked about earlier, that example of nurturing and selling in the same breath in every email. And so I think it's like where you really want to like get specific, get into the details of your offer. That's where they're ready to hear it. Because on socials, you're competing with everything else and every funny video. like, but email is where people can really take a second to absorb everything. And so, you can get into those really specific topics of like, here's how you know that you're ready. Here's what's included in the offer. Here's how you'll be guided. And sending emails every week that cover those different angles.
mm.
Are the urgency levers on email different than like a sales page that's always live or like Instagram where it's very short and goldfish brain that people don't remember things?
Yeah, I would say that, of course, a sales page is you need to have all your messaging laid out because it's static, it's there. Great. But when people are buying an offer, especially a higher ticket or premium offer, they need those repeated touch points. They need like um, maybe more info than just what your FAQ section can provide on your sales page. So again, like your emails are your chance to just treat it as like those consistent touch points and those like buy now opportunities of like just like almost like you're just checking in. And so I would say the messaging there, again, you can pull from your sales page and just expand. So um yeah, just kind of like dialing into where they are now, where they want to be in every email.
So this is all really helpful. And going through all of this, I can definitely see how people are able to start making little changes. But there's so many more side quests we could go on in this conversation. And so we've collected a few of them to put into rapid fire just to get your answers in like a couple sentences. So the first one we're going to go with pricing. Are you for transparent pricing or inquiring for more details?
You should absolutely have transparent pricing because that's how people prepare to buy.
For evergreen offers, how do you create urgency if it's always available?
You talk about why you, why me, why this, why now, so that they know, regardless if you have a deadline, discount, or bonus going on, they know why it matters to them to get started and what's at stake and also what's possible when they say yes.
Evergreen part B. If you have an evergreen offer, should you do discounts?
Ooh, no. And the reason for that is when your offers are always available, people are already waiting to buy. And if you only do discounts, then you are only encouraging people to continue to wait until that next discount. So I encourage you to learn how to master this internal urgency so that you can bring in sales any day, anytime.
One of the things that we hear people say a lot is, I'm giving away so much knowledge. Why aren't they buying?
because you need to think about shifting from just nurturing to selling. You know that you're doing one or the other when nurturing is inspiring, educating, and giving how-tos, tips, and tricks. You are selling when you are building desire for an outcome and inviting them to make a buying decision.
Is it possible to take this framework and apply it to an in-person conversation as we see in-person events becoming more and more popular this year?
Absolutely. And I would say that one of the best ways you can build urgency in an in-person conversation is talk about what you could help them do in the next 30 to 60 days and get specific. And that's going to get them fired up and wanting to book in with you.
The polarizing question: does AI deserve a place in ethical urgency or sales call to actions?
I think AI is a tool that works best when you know your audience best, because if you don't, it's going to generalize your message and pull it to the middle. So you need to be able to speak to what's most important to them and their desires. And if you can do that, then you can spot when AI is failing to do that, which I would say as a baseline, it does. So I think if you are able to, again, speak to that internal urgency of like their problems, their desires, their identity, and the questions that are stopping them, you can use AI in tandem with that to pull out messaging that will feel urgent.
For someone listening to this, what is the highest impact thing they could change this week that would take them 30 minutes or less?
I would create a pinned post on your profile that makes it very clear that which offer you are trying to take bookings for or sign clients into right now, and make the messaging on that very clear that this is something you're helping clients do right now and you want to help them too.
Okay, now we're going to move into a lightning round, which is just another set of fun small questions. More to do with you as Samantha than sales. So, first question, what book are you currently reading?
Ooh, Never Split the Difference.
One of my favorites. I love that book.
So if anyone doesn't know, it's a book about a past hostage negotiator who talks about his literal case studies of helping people, because you can't split the difference in a hostage situation. So it's really interesting for sales, like sales psychology, and yeah, like showing how to talk to people in a way that
It's
gets
so
everybody what they
good.
want.
So good. That, yeah, will remain one of my favorites. So it's going to be hard for many other books to top it. Okay, next question. What is a typical day in the life for you?
Ooh, so I am from the US. I'm from DC, but I'm currently living in Tunisia. And recently it's been like do a little bit of work at my desk, and then I will like decompress after the day by walking down the beach. And then I'll probably turn on Netflix when I get home.
Dream day. I love that. I would be at the beach all the time.
I can't help. Yeah, it's so great.
Is there anyone that you are learning from right now?
Ooh, I am working with Jerisha Hawk. She is fantastic. We've been talking a lot about just managing time, schedules, and just kind of like that messy middle of entrepreneurship. She's been super helpful for that.
That's awesome. Those are such valuable conversations to have.
Yeah.
Like, makes all the difference.
Mhm.
Okay, well, the last question we ask all of our guests is, do you have any questions for us?
Ooh, what do you think the biggest change has been in like the online business space, and how do you think people should be like adjusting for that?
I think for me, what I am seeing across us and our clients, the biggest change in the online space is the return to relationships. Because I think if we look at the arc of like the online business space, like we had early 2000s with mommy bloggers, then we had travel bloggers, vloggers, then we had the social media businesses, the Kardashians built massive businesses on Instagram. And then we had the pandemic wave of everyone was a course creator, and there was the stimulus check free money that was invested into online educators. And I think we're coming to the point now that the people that were really good across all of those arcs, there's now a corpus of knowledge on the internet that AI is making easy to copy. And that is all now training data that people starting a business, running a business right now are now competing with the last 20 years of knowledge on the internet. And the really durable thing right now is personal relationships. So me talking to you or in-person events, we're seeing a huge rise in that right now, which is like, oh, I run a business online and I'm investing a ton of money to fly across the country to see my clients in person. And that is becoming like a luxury good that is no longer as luxury as it used to be. And so it's interesting to me is seeing like people are pouring into relationships more now than ever in the past. And that is where most of our sales are coming from, is we got to know someone or someone we know referred us. And so the trust is harder to create because knowledge is so quote unquote cheap at this point, is one of the trends I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think that's such an important observation. And like, I think when we talk about urgency too, I think one of the biggest factors is trust. Like, and like, because you can have something great, but if there's not that trust factor, it's going to be hard to build that urgency. And that's again a whole other conversation we could get into. But whenever and wherever you can create those, I call it trust points with your audience, where you're giving them a chance to engage with you. And that can be so many different things, like whether it's like a free audit or like DM me if you want my eyes on something or anything like that, where you can give them that experience of what is it like to have your brain on their stuff. I think that is so much more valuable than just like a static, like a freebie or, here's something that ChatGPT could have written necessarily, So yeah, I totally agree on the trust factor.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm curious to flip the question back around to you. Is there anything that you are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, this whole ethical urgency conversation and trust, I would honestly echo it because I think that that's where we're at now, where people are savvy, they are informed, they can very quickly and easily do a comparison of like, who should I work with? And again, I think relationships is spot on. And I think that if you want people to feel that urgency to work with you, that trust has to be there and more and more. And I think there's so many angles of it. It's like that personal trust, the expertise trust, trust that you're going to deliver, and trust in your client experience as well. So it's, you gotta put in the work for the
Across the board.
trust for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, that's good. This has all been so good. Thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge here. I know that we've got different things that we've learned in this conversation. I know our listeners have definitely learned a lot. And so if anyone wants to connect with you further to just learn more from you in any capacity, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I recommend I'm on Instagram at samanthahoilett.writes, and I've got my email list, Sell Out Loud, where I send weekly insights on messaging, copy, and how to sell more spots in your offers.
Love it. We'll link both of those in the show notes for you guys so that you can go connect with Samantha more. She shares a lot of great advice and practical tools and just reframes. Thank you so much for being here, Samantha. This has been amazing and we appreciate your time. And same to you guys for listening all the way to the end. You guys are amazing as well. That's a wrap. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Bye.